For many, many years, a grumpy old man in Georgia had owned a large farm. The grumpy old man possessed a sizable pond on his property, meticulously designed for swimming. He took great care to enhance its surroundings by adding picnic tables, horseshoe courts, and a delightful array of apple and peach trees. One evening, as the sun began to set, the grumpy old farmer felt an urge to visit the tranquil pond that had been neglected for some time. Curiosity beckoned him to its banks, prompting him to bring along a 5-gallon bucket with hopes of collecting ripe fruits along the way. As he approached the pond, the lively sounds of voices filled the air, filled with shouts of joy and contagious laughter. Moving closer, his eyes beheld a delightful sight, a group of young women joyfully embracing the freedom of skinny dipping in his very own pond. Upon realizing his presence, he caught the attention of the women, prompting them to swiftly swim towards the deeper section of the pond. In a spirited tone, one of the women exclaimed, "We won't come out until you leave." With a disapproving expression, the grumpy old man said, "My intention wasn't to witness your unclothed swimming endeavors or compel you to vacate the pond in the nude." Raising the bucket aloft, he continued, "I'm here to feed the alligator." Two young boys walked into a pharmacy, picked out a box of tampons, and went to the checkout. The man at the counter asked, "Son, how old are you?" "8," the boy replied. "Do you know what these are used for?" the man asked. The boy answered, "Not exactly, but they aren't for me. They're for my brother. He's 4. We saw on TV that if you use these, you can swim and ride a bike. Right now, he can't do either." Two ladies of leisure were cruising around town one sunny afternoon, proudly displaying a sign on top of their car that read, "Two fun-loving friends, $50. Naturally, a police officer noticed the sign and pulled them over. He gave them a stern look and said, "Ladies, you're going to need to take that sign down, or I'll have to take you downtown." They sighed in frustration, and just as they were about to comply, another car drove by with a sign that said, "Jesus saves." One of the gals pointed and asked, "Hey, how come they can ride around with a sign and we can't?" The officer smiled and said, "Well, that's about religion." So, the two women frowned, peeled off their sign, and drove away, quietly brainstorming. The very next day, the officer sees the same car back on the road with a new sign. He flips on his lights, thinking he's about to bust them again, but as he gets closer, he reads, "Two fallen angels seeking Peter, $50. The officer laughed so hard he forgot why he pulled them over in the first place. So a man walks into a doctor's office. He's looking all panicked, sweating bullets. He sits down and says, "Doc, I need help. Every morning I wake up, and for some reason, I think I'm a dog." The doctor leans forward, nods, and says, "That's unusual. How long has this been going on?" The guy says, "Oh, for years now. It's driving me nuts. Every morning, I wake up and I go straight to the back door, scratching at it like I gotta go outside. Then, if someone rings the doorbell, I can't help myself. I just go nuts barking at them." The doctor rubs his chin and says, That is strange. Well, tell me, have you tried anything to fix it?" And the guy says, "Have I tried anything? Oh yeah, I've tried everything. Meditation, therapy, hypnosis. Nothing works." The doctor sighs. "All right, well, let's start simple. Why don't you lie down on the couch and we'll talk this through?" And the guy shakes his head and says, "Oh, I can do that document." The doctor looks confused. "Why not?" And the guy says, "Because I'm not allowed on the furniture." One afternoon, a man was reading the newspaper when his wife suddenly came up behind him and smacked him on the head with a frying pan. "Why in the world did you do that?" he yelled. "I found a piece of paper in your coat pocket with the name Susie on it," she replied. He rubbed his head and said, "Honey, remember last week when I went to the races with some friends? Susie was the name of the horse I was betting on." She fell silent. But 3 days later, as he was reading the newspaper again, his wife emerged from behind him and smacked him on the head again. "Why again?" he shouted. She smiled and said, "Just wanted to let you know, your horse called. It was a blazing hot Saturday evening in the summer of '57, and young Fred was all spruced up for his big date with the ever-charming Peggy Sue. He slicked back his hair, polished his shoes to a mirror shine, and cruised over in his dad's prized Chevy. When he rang the bell, Peggy Sue's mother opened the door with a warm smile. "Oh, come on in, honey. Peggy's still getting ready," she said sweetly. "Have a seat. Want something to drink? Lemonade? Iced tea?" "Iced tea would be swell, ma'am," Fred replied. She brought him a glass and sat down like she had all the time in the world. "So," she said with a grin, "what are you and Peggy planning for tonight?" Fred shrugged, trying to sound cool. "Maybe a movie, a burger at the malt shop, then maybe a stroll down by the beach. Real nice and easy." Peggy's mom leaned in and said cheerfully, "You know, Peggy loves to screw." Fred nearly choked on his iced tea. I beg your pardon." "Oh yes," she continued, totally unfazed. "When she goes out with her friends, that's all they do." Fred blinked. "All night long, if we'd let her," the mom added with a nod, as if she'd just said Peggy liked hopscotch. Fred, now trying not to pass out, managed a polite, "Well, thanks for the heads up." Just then, Peggy Sue floated down the stairs, picture-perfect in her pink blouse, hoop skirt, and a ponytail that bounced like it had its own personality. "Hi, Fred," she chirped, and off they went. Half an hour later, the front door flew open and Peggy Sue stormed in, wind-blown, red-faced, and furious. She glared into the kitchen and shouted, "The twist, the dance is called the twist." There once was a stingy old lawyer, you know the type, tighter with money than a pickle jar in a vacuum seal, who got some bad news from his doctor. Terminal illness. Time was short. But instead of reflecting on life or making peace with his neighbors, this guy had one burning mission. Prove that you can, in fact, take it with you. Yep. He was determined to defy the age-old truth about money staying behind when you kick the bucket. So after days of intense scheming, and probably drawing charts like a mad scientist, he called his long-suffering wife over and said, "Darling, I've cracked the code. Here's the plan." He told her to go to the bank and withdraw stacks, enough to fill 2 entire pillowcases with cold, hard cash. Then, like he was staging a reverse heist, he instructed her to climb up to the attic and place the bags directly above their bed. His logic? Simple. When I die and ascend to heaven, I'll just grab the bags on the way up. Weeks later, the funeral was over, the casseroles were eaten, and life slowly settled down. One day, while dusting in the attic, his widow stumbled upon the 2 pillowcases, still there. She stared at them for a moment, shook her head, and sighed. "That darned old fool. I told him he should have had me put the money in the basement." A Texas farmer named Clyde had a tractor accident. In court, the trucking company's fancy hot-shot lawyer was questioning Clyde. "Didn't you say, at the scene of the accident, 'I'm fine'?" asked the lawyer. Clyde responded, "Well, I'll tell you what happened. I had just loaded my favorite cow, Bessie, into the—" "I didn't ask for any details," the lawyer interrupted. "Just answer the question, please. Did you or did you not say, at the scene of the accident, 'I'm fine'?" Clyde said, "Well, I had just got Bessie into the trailer behind the tractor and I was driving down the road." The lawyer interrupted again and said, "Your Honor, I am trying to establish the fact that, at the scene of the accident, this man told the highway patrolman on the scene that he was just fine. Now, several weeks after the accident, he is trying to sue my client. I believe he is a fraud. Please tell him to simply answer the question." By this time, the judge was fairly interested in Clyde's answer and said to the lawyer, "I'd like to hear what he has to say about his favorite cow, Bessie." Clyde thanked the judge and proceeded. "Well, as I was saying, I had just loaded Bessie, my favorite cow, into the trailer and was driving her down the highway when this huge semi-truck and trailer ran the stop sign and smacked my John Deere tractor right in the side. I was thrown into one ditch and Bessie was thrown into the other. I was hurting, real bad, and didn't want to move. However, I could hear old Bessie moaning and groaning. I knew she was in terrible shape just by her groans. Shortly after the accident, a highway patrolman came on the scene. He could hear Bessie moaning and groaning, so he went over to her. After he looked at her, and saw her fatal condition, he took out his gun and shot her between the eyes. Then the patrolman came across the road, gun still in hand, looked at me and said, "How are you feeling? Now tell me, what the heck would you say?" A man playing on a new golf course got confused as to what hole he was on. He saw a lady playing ahead of him, so he walked up to her and asked if she knew what hole he was playing. She replied, "I'm on the 7th hole and you're a hole behind me, so you must be on the 6th hole." He thanked her and went back to his golf. On the back 9, the same thing happened and he approached the lady, again with the same request. She said, "I'm on the 14th, you are a hole behind me, so you must be on the 13th. Once again, he thanked her. He finished his round, went into the clubhouse and saw the lady sitting at the end of the bar. He went up to her and said, "Let me buy you a drink to show my appreciation for your help." He started a conversation and asked her what kind of work she did. She said she was in sales, and he said he was in sales also. He asked what she sold. She replied, "If I told you, you would only laugh." "No, I wouldn't," he said. She said, "I sell tampons." With that, he fell on the floor laughing so hard. She said, "See, I knew you would laugh." "That's not what I'm laughing at," he replied. "I'm a toilet paper salesman, so I'm still one hole behind you." So this guy sticks his head into a busy barber shop and goes, "Hey buddy, how long before I can get a haircut?" The barber glances around the packed shop and says, "About 2 hours." The guy nods and walks out. A few days later, same guy pops his head in again. "How long before I can get a haircut?" Barber looks up from his clippers, scans the room. Still about 2 hours. Guy leaves. No haircut. Just gone. Then, about a week later, here comes the same dude. Pokes his head in and asks, "How long before I can get a haircut?" This time the barber says, "Hour and a half." The guy, "Yep." Leaves again. Now the barber's curious. He turns to his buddy Joey, sitting in the waiting chair, and says, "Hey Joey, I'll give you a free haircut if you follow that guy and find out where the heck he goes." Joey grins. "You got it." About 30 minutes later, Joey comes stumbling back into the shop, wheezing, gasping, laughing so hard he's crying. Barber goes, "What? What's so funny? Where'd he go?" Joey wipes a tear and yells, "To your house." A man sits sipping lemonade on his front porch when he spots a landscaping crew working a few houses down. But something seems off. There are 3 workers, 2 are frantically digging holes, and 1 stands nearby, arms crossed, doing absolutely nothing. The man watches, confused. 1 worker digs a deep hole. The second one fills it right back in. Over and over, hole after hole. Eventually, curiosity gets the better of him. He walks over and asks, "Hey fellas, I've been watching you work for an hour. You dig a hole," he fills it in, and the guy over there just watches. "What exactly are you trying to get done?" One of the workers wipes sweat off his brow and says, "Oh yeah, normally we're a tree planting crew. I dig the hole, Jake here fills it in, and Kyle, he's the one who puts the tree in." The man raises an eyebrow. "So, where's Kyle?" The worker sighs. Sick day. First-time driver, full circle payback. Emma had just passed her driving test and was practically glowing with pride. She ran into the house, waved her shiny new license in the air, and said, "Let's go! First official drive." Her dad, mom, and younger brother all piled into the car. Without hesitation, her dad slid into the back seat, right behind her. Emma looked at him in the rearview mirror and grinned. "Ah, switching it up, huh? After months of teaching me from the front seat, you finally get to relax in the back." Her dad smiled sweetly and said, "Nah, I'm back here to do what you always did, kick the seat and ask, 'Are we there yet?' every 5 minutes." For her 72nd birthday, Margaret from Asheville decided to spoil herself with a night at an upscale hotel in Charleston. It had 5 stars, marble everything, and a waterfall in the lobby. Very fancy. The next morning, after a peaceful sleep and 0 room service, she checked out. The front desk clerk handed her a bill for $375. "Excuse me," Margaret said, adjusting her glasses. "This must be a mistake. I didn't order caviar. I just slept here." The clerk replied cheerfully, "That's our standard rate, ma'am. It includes breakfast, which you were welcome to enjoy." "I didn't want breakfast," Margaret said, now fully channeling her inner courtroom drama. "I just wanted to sleep." The clerk, sensing a storm, called the manager. In strolls the manager, all smiles and sales pitch. "Mrs. Thompson, our hotel features a rooftop infinity pool, a state-of-the-art gym, and a full spa, all of which were available to you." "But I didn't use any of them," Margaret said. "Well, they're here. You could have," the manager replied with that gotcha smile. He continued, "We also host nightly performances with Grammy-winning jazz artists and international magicians." Margaret, unimpressed, didn't go, didn't see, didn't clap. "But you could have," he replied. This went on for a few more minutes, him listing every inch of the hotel, her calmly replying that she hadn't used a single one. Finally, Margaret sighed, pulled out her checkbook, scribbled away, and handed the check to the manager. He stared at it. Ma'am, this is a check for only $75. She beamed. "That's right. I deducted $300 for personal services." "Personal services?" he asked, frowning. "Sleeping with me," she said sweetly. "What? I most certainly did not." "Well," she said, grabbing her purse, "I was here, and you could have."